We like to think of soldiers as defending us abroad, but this month a federal judge had to stop the president from sending them into Oregon against that state's wishes. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek said no. The protests in Portland were small, often just a few dozen people outside an ICE facility. But the White House moved to federalize Oregon National Guard troops. When the judge blocked that move, the admin flew in about 200 Guard troops from California and prepared to send more from Texas. And that prompted a second court order, blocking any National Guard from being deployed into Oregon from anywhere. This isn't just a spat between politicians. It's about a constitutional line that dates back over 200 years. In Federalist Number 29, Alexander Hamilton called a well-regulated militia the most natural defense of a free country. Congress was given the power to call forth the militia, but only to execute the laws, or suppress insurrections, or repel invasions. The president commands it once called, but only within that framework. In 1957, President Eisenhower sent the 101st Airborne into Little Rock to enforce a federal court order and protect black students' constitutional rights. That's the historic bar. Federal force used to uphold constitutional law, not to respond to routine protests or immigration enforcement. And yet, at the same time, in Chicago, immigration agents rappelled from helicopters into apartment blocks, and bystanders were zip-tied. A chemical agent was deployed near an elementary school. A city alderperson was handcuffed in a hospital after asking to see a warrant. In the suburb of Broadview, federal agents erected an 8-foot fence around an ICE facility, without permits. The town sued. DHS says they're targeting violent gangs, but residents, officials, and civil rights groups say many of those caught up were bystanders, some of them U.S. citizens, and that no warrants were shown. The framers built a system of civilian control to prevent military force from turning inward. That's why we have the Posse Comitatus Act, restricting the military's domestic role. That's why the Insurrection Act demands specific conditions. That's why the Fourth Amendment requires probable cause and a warrant before entering your home. Every time federal force comes home, from the Whiskey Rebellion to the Bonus Army to the 1967 riots, we're forced to ask, are they enforcing the law or intimidating dissent? Supreme Court rulings from Ex parte Milligan to Sterling v. Constantine to Youngstown have said clearly the executive can't just declare necessity and bypass the law. So when you see attempted troop deployments over a governor's objection or helicopters landing in your neighborhood, these aren't just policy choices. They're constitutional stress tests. The framers feared standing armies in our streets. We wrote laws to prevent it. The question now is, do we still have the will to enforce them?